Focus. All right, click the links to join the channel. Join me over, subscribe, Star Odyssey, Bit Chute, Gab, Telegram. So, quick update on the Flash's Ezra Miller. And if you remember, Batgirl, that movie got canceled, and so now you're looking at this other DC movie, The Flash. Kind of weird because you're looking at like $100 million for the other movie. Was so bad they couldn't release it. And I'll probably do a video on that tomorrow. It's fascinating because there's interviews with a bunch of people who worked on the movie, and it's like when they worked on it, they said they knew it was bad, and they couched it in very careful language to say things like it was convoluted and hard to follow, and like some of the dialogue they didn't understand. And I look at a movie like that and think, okay, well, it's probably preachy and woke. Like that seems to me the more. That seems to me like the more logical Occam's razor. It's like usually when a film's bad these days, it's because it's too preachy and woke. And they didn't say that, but I don't know if they didn't say that because they didn't feel comfortable saying that, or if it was really just a convoluted plot. But you look at it's called Batwoman. It's about a comic book. It's like comic book stories are not supposed to be convoluted and woke. They're supposed to be really kind of straight ahead. Maybe some comedic elements, maybe a little romance in there. But it's kind of straight ahead. Good guy versus bad guy. Overcomes some obstacles, forms teams, determines, I don't know, has to find his inner reliance on whatever. And, battle the dragon and get the girl at the end of the movie. It's like Batgirl. The movie's called Batgirl. It really shouldn't be that complicated. Anyway. So they're looking at that, and then they're looking at this Flash movie, which they put up more money than they wanted to because of the delays caused with the, the Wu flu. So you're looking at if you look at it, it's like, oh, is you talking about like $500 million that might be in play here with DC? If depending on is this movie going to come out? Is it going to bomb, or are they not going to release it? And they said they're going to release it. So what are the numbers on this movie going to be? This guy's such a freaking nut job. So how do you deal with that kind of amount of money? That's like you got to get some. You're actually looking at some serious financial losses in the future. Amazon, like I said with Lord of the Rings, I think that's going to be a huge, huge loss. Hundreds of millions of dollars are just going to go up in smoke when that movie comes out, or the show comes out, streaming show comes out next month. Yeah, the first episode will get a lot of eyeballs, and then I suspect it won't get any after that. It'll go the way of Wheel of Time. But they spent like $700 to $800 million on the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. So I expect that money. It's like you could have just burned it, and it would have been at least more entertaining. Anyway, you're looking at a couple, and Disney is not in financial trouble because they have so much cash coming in. But all of these companies, it seems like some of the woke preachiness is starting to catch up with them. And this is kind of a different example. So anyway, this came out, I don't know, 5 years ago when they did this interview. And you probably saw this. A lot of people saw this interview because you watch this guy, you're like, is he coked out of his mind or on something? Or I, of course, am not familiar with drugs whatsoever. But he looked like he was either nuts or on some kind of, I don't know, had some drinks with some pills beforehand to give this interview. It's like, all right, one weird interview. You can have one guy who thought I'm so nervous at this interview, I'll pop a couple pills, and it's like, oh shit, I took too many. I'm basically slurring my words and whatever. It happens, right? But what doesn't happen is you don't have a whole string of weird events for the next 5 years, which is exactly what happened with Ezra Miller. So he seems to be having some kind of mental illness issue. It doesn't seem like drugs, he might be playing around with drugs on top of it, but it seems like there's something more serious than that, kind of to the point where they can't be ignored. And he was doing things like he was hanging out with kids, and it wasn't anything more nefarious than that. It's bad enough to hang out with kids, but it's not like there was nothing any more accusations any weirder than that. But it's like he wanted to be like a spiritual guru or something, and I don't know. It's like maybe you could find some adults to join your cult. Having a cult sounds like a lot of fun, but and then he was going around in Kevlar and armed all the time, which actually is very, very cool and based. I have no problem with that. But he was also hanging around kids, and he had kids coming. He had family friends, I guess. So they were friends, and they're bringing over their kids to his ranch or something. He had guns laying around all over the place. It's like, well, that's cool too. That's super cool. But if you got kids around, you got to put them away when the kids are there. It's like kids and guns don't usually go together. But then he starts doing this whole string of weird things that kind of couldn't be ignored. Like he was going into people's hotel rooms, and it's not like when he goes like, oh, he was taking people's wallets and keys and weird things like that. It's like it's not the mindset of an ordinary thief who's trying to steal cash in the wallet. It's just like he's just nuts. Like he was picking up a wallet probably because he thought it had magical significance or something. I mean, he was picking up keys. It's like you couldn't possibly use the keys, but in his mind he's in some kind of episode and he's thinking the keys like unlocking hidden portals or something. He's out of his mind. Even one of his Instagram posts, he's talking about like alternative dimensions he was going into. Anyway, so and then he went to a karaoke bar, and he's, I don't know, like yelling at people at a karaoke bar, just out of his mind. And like people didn't want to press charges on him just because I mean, you look at him, it's like, you know, you're kind of hoping that the guy gets help. But he's just like, there's not a lot of help for mental illness nowadays, which is really a shame. It's almost like that was done by design to get as many crazy people out on the street. Anyway, so his own personal issues aside, it's, you know, it sucks for him. The other issue is, or, you know, it also sucks like, gee, why did the movie producers get this guy help years ago? I mean, the thing is like involuntary commitment is really tricky now because the ACLU, you know, shut down at the federal level commitment in hospitals, which means they shut down the hospital. So like the infrastructure isn't in place because of the ACLU, which again is a really tricky issue. So the other issue is, you know, the movies he's in years ago. And when I saw that Justice League interview, like me and everyone else looked down like, okay, something's not right here. But the thing is, if we knew that, then why didn't the producers, the directors, the casting agents, why didn't everyone who had to have some like prolonged contact with the guy, like surely they must have picked up on something. It's not right with this guy. Even back then, because I don't know when that thing came out, but so like even before then, you're spending all day with this guy, going over lines, talking to him. It's like there's eccentric, but then there's whatever he is, and that's like you should have picked up on that earlier. And it's kind of weird that for a movie that you know he's going to be in like the next half dozen movies, assuming that, you know, there's demand for it, you'd want someone a little bit more stable. And like crazy or not, you look at him and you talk to him for an hour, it's like, oh, he's not stable. He's not what you would call, like Gal Gadot in the interviews with Gal Gadot, you look at her like, oh, she's a perfectly adult, reasonable person. She might have good days and bad days, but she's not nuts. Where this guy is, like, he's just not, he's not all there. It's not something like, oh, we're going to be working with you for the next 15 years making these movies. We probably want someone who's on a more even keel. Anyway, everyone who saw that interview knew the guy was nuts. So the thing is with Gina Carano and Johnny Depp, while this guy Ezra Miller got chance after chance, he did that weird thing in Iceland where some chick is taking his picture, doing something that's like it was just a normal person talking to him, and he throws her to the ground or something. Even the guy who's filming, you hear in the guy who's filming his voice, like he saw what Ezra did. He tossed her to the ground. It's like he didn't hurt her or anything, but I mean, you can't touch somebody. It's called a battery. You can't touch and push someone to the ground. And even the guy filming is like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? He saw a side of his friend. I don't know if it was a real friend or a casual friend, but it's like when you see a side of somebody you had not seen before, and you're like, oh yeah, I need to not be around this person because they're going to get me in trouble. Anyway, so that was years ago when that thing came out, and it's like it wasn't a big deal, but I mean it was on film. It did get some publicity, and it's like he probably just paid her off for her, you know, pain and suffering. But you know, he got chance after chance, and Gina Carano and Johnny Depp didn't get that many chances. So, you know, why are there different standards for different people? And, you know, Johnny Depp is also a left-wing whack job, but for that it was a male versus female thing, so things are a little different. Gina Carano, she's not left-wing, I don't think. I mean, the most you can say, she might be like a true liberal or libertarian or something, because there's actually a small subset of left-wing people who are still fiercely pro free speech, but there's another big chunk of the left which is seems to be terrified by the open marketplace of ideas. Anyway, so she you know, she didn't want to use pronouns. I was like, well, okay, what does that mean? It means she didn't believe in compelled speech. that's the bigger issue. It's like, should you be able to use social pressure to compel speech to say things that people don't believe in? No, that's not a good, that's a very slippery slope. And like the people who are advocating that you should use compelled speech, you should use pressure and force to force people to say things. It's like, well, words and ideas are very intricately related. You don't want anyone controlling your words, because then they're controlling your thoughts. And it's like there's this yin and yang of politics being downstream from social media culture. Like, you don't want to go down to this kind of bizarro fantasy land of forcing people to, using social pressure to get people to say things that are not in accord with reality, or not in accord with their own personal beliefs, especially when people have been using, biological sex pronouns ever since this later common English was a thing. Anyway, and she said something about, she was talking about how the left wing nowadays is dehumanizing and alienating people on the right, or even moderates who disagree with them on some political issues, and the left wing is treating those people, your neighbors, as the other. She referenced another period of history where something similar happened, and she's trying to say, like, yeah, you shouldn't be dehumanizing people who are not 100% in lockstep with all your ideas. And it's like, oh, so what was Disney's response? Well, they fired her from The Mandalorian, or fired her from Disney in general, which is a shame, because people liked The Mandalorian. She was one of the reasons they liked it. And it's not like she probably wasn't a huge deal of that, but it's when they fired her from The Mandalorian, people looked at Disney in a different way. And then when Disney started getting involved with the Florida anti-grooming bill, and they were against that, and you look at it like, so it kind of puts Disney on the side of the groomers. That's kind of weird. It's so people, there's like someone said in the comments yesterday, there's a whole chunk of the population of normies with families who are just not aware of the Disney culture war, which is a shame. It's like that's why channels like all the whole branch of YouTube that covers this kind of stuff, like the nerdrotic channels, they're doing important stuff because they're spreading this message about Disney and HBO and Amazon and Netflix. It is really important to spread this message. It's it's one of the reasons, like, I make YouTube videos that, like, there's obviously there's no money for a channel like this in YouTube, but I still think it's important to do, like, what the common person, what the ordinary person can do to help spread this message. That's why I make Odyssey and Bit Chute videos, more base topics over there. That like, no, it doesn't bring any, it doesn't, so there's some donations, but no, it's not like, it's not a financial thing. It's just like, we have to do something to spread this message to other reasonable people to kind of get things back on. We want the adults to come back in the building, and then you look around and realize, like, oh, we're the adults now, so we have to be the ones to kind of fix this. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode.